Guys, I've been giving some thought over the past few weeks about a good book or topic or series for extended discussion, typically toward the end of each podcast. And I think I'm going to do a study, a kind of mini course on a great work by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. It's called The Gulag Archipelago. Now, this is a book from another time and another place, from the early to mid 20th century, written by a great Russian writer who won the Nobel Prize in 1970. And it is about a totalitarian Soviet regime that at the first glance seems to bear little resemblance, some would say no resemblance, to what's happening in America today. I beg to differ. As most of you know, I'm doing a film that's coming out shortly. It's called Police State. And the film deals with the emerging police state in America. And for this reason, I think it is appropriate for us to consider one of the great classics of the 20th century. By looking at what happened in another society, we get some insight into what's happening not only there, but also here. Solzhenitsyn himself makes this point in a very short sort of foreword or pre-word that he writes to the latest translation. This was done, of course, while Solzhenitsyn was still alive. And he says that if it were possible for any nation to fathom another people's bitter experience through a book, how much easier its future fate would become, and how many calamities and mistakes it could avoid. He's almost like he's talking directly to us from, as it is now, from the grave. And then he goes, but it is very difficult. He says there is always this fallacious belief, quote, "It would not be the same here. Here such things are impossible." And think of all the Americans who go, I don't really want to hear about the Soviet Union because what does this have to do with America? We're a completely different society, different culture, different history, different founding, different experience of liberty. The Russians sort of never really had freedom. They were under the czars even before communism. So what does Soviet and Russian experience have to teach us? And continues Solzhenitsyn, alas, the evil of the 20th century is possible everywhere on earth. And I think he could have added possible not only everywhere, but at any time. So tyranny to that degree lurks around the corner. And one reason for this, by the way, one reason why things can always happen, always turn for the bad, is Solzhenitsyn himself puts it in one of the greatest lines in this work, The Gulag Archipelago. He says the line between good and evil runs through every human heart. That alone is a line worth thinking about, and I've been thinking about it off and on for many years. A little bit about Solzhenitsyn's bio. He was born in a place called Kislovodsk, Russia, 1918, so a little over a century ago. He was a student of mathematics and physics, so trained in the sciences. And then when World War II broke out, he joined the Red Army. He fought, obviously, on the Russian side, and it turned out to be the Soviet side, against the invading armies from Germany. And after the war in 1945, he was imprisoned for 8 years. Why? Because he made some negative remarks about Stalin that were reported to the authorities. This is something he talks about, although rather briefly in the Gulag Archipelago. One may seem that for a guy who was in the Gulag, who had extensive experiences over 8 years, that this would be a kind of personal, autobiographical memoir. But no, it is in fact a kind of systematic history of the Gulag. He has included in it the experiences of hundreds, even thousands of people. He gives names and dates and places. He says right in the beginning of the book, this is what I'm telling you is not nonfiction. Every single detail, every single person. Now, in some cases, he was forced either not to give a name or to give only a first name or to change a name. But even when he changes a name, that is a reflection of a real person. And he has their experiences, he has their diaries, or he has it from firsthand testimony from somebody else who was, for example, in a cell or in a prison camp with them. Solzhenitsyn's own experience is described in the book, mainly his arrest, and he has very arresting things to say about it, but he doesn't go into great detail. In the end, it's almost as if he's saying, this is really not about me, or I was only one among many, and I want to tell the full story of the camps. And he calls it it is both an historical and, in Solzhenitsyn's own words, a literary investigation. Solzhenitsyn was rehabilitated in 1956 when Khrushchev denounced Stalin, but he was still forcibly exiled from the Soviet Union because he condemned Soviet censorship in 1974. He went to West Germany. Then he came to America. He lived in Vermont for many years. And only in 1994, after all charges were dropped against him, his name was completely cleared. This was, by the way, after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Solzhenitsyn went back to Russia, where he died. And his works, we're going to be talking about the Gulag Archipelago, the other works well known, One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich, Cancer Ward, but the greatest of them all, the one we'll be discussing, and we'll pick it up tomorrow, Solzhenitsyn's The Gulag Archipelago, written in 3 parts, but I'm going to be looking at an abridged version by Harville Press. That is abridged by a guy named Edward Erickson. Debbie and I made a New Year's resolution to lose weight, and thankfully PhD weight loss came to our rescue. Debbie's lost 24 pounds, I've lost 27. We both feel great, and we're now both officially on maintenance. The program is based on science and nutrition. No injections, no pills, no long hours in the gym, no severe calorie restriction, just good, sound, scientifically proven nutrition. It's so simple. They make it easy by providing 80% of your food at no additional cost. They tell you when and what to eat, and guess what? You can do this without ever being hungry. The founder, Dr. Ashley Lucas, has her PhD in chronic disease and sports nutrition. She's also a registered dietitian. She helps people lose weight and, most important, maintain that weight loss for life. So if you're ready to take the step of losing weight like Debbie and I have, call PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition. Here's the number, 864-644-1900. You can also find them online at myphdweightloss.com. The number again to call, 864-644-1900.